So today, we're going to take this, we're going to take these, we're going to transform them into a Han Solo blaster. These are just straight off my printer. As far as the body goes, this is a BB gun version, so it's the 100% size. We're going to remove the barrel. We're going to cover it with something that can't be fired in, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. The first step, though, is we're going to remove some flashing. We're going to Bondo everything. We're going to sand. We're going to finish. We're going to do the whole thing, right? Step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is pull off all of the flashing off of this. Like I said, these are just the parts off of Thingiverse. It's nothing major, and it's straight off my printer. It's not even that good of a print, but it is what I have, and in the end, it'll look fantastic. As far as the body goes, like I said, the body is a BB gun body. You could easily just print a body and do the exact same thing we're doing here. My Mersan is my Imperial Officer gun is fully 3D printed. It's the same process, it's the same techniques, it's the same steps, but we're just going to primarily focus on the scope and the greebles for this. So I'm going to start. I'm going to pull off all the flashing, because like I said, it is literally straight off of my printer bed. I've done nothing so far. We're going to separate all the pieces into individual parts. We're going to pile them all together, and then we're going to just go over the whole thing. So let me bring you in close so you can see what we're working with first off. So again, BB gun body, whatever body works, it doesn't really matter. This process is for any 3D printed thing. First thing I always do is I pull the piece off. For round insides, I like to run a quick deburrer around it. For the outside, I just go over the whole thing with my utility knife. Again, I'm not moving my knife, I'm moving the part. Once we put everything together, we'll sand it too. There really isn't much of a secret to any of this. Like sewing, it's all pretty much the same thing. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. For the inside around parts, run a quick deburr around it. Should probably put in a fresh blade. We might do that in a couple of minutes. So all I'm doing is taking this extra flashing off the edge of the part. Now when we put the two pieces together, oh, that's the wrong piece. When we put the two pieces together, I believe it goes this way. Everything lines up nice and neat. Ultimately, we're trying to make a 3D printed part look non-3D printed. That's all we're really trying to do at this point. But first, let's take everything off. Nice long runs. Just run the deburr tool over it. Absolutely takes care of the thing. I love this tool. This is a fantastic tool. So, we're basically just going to do that on all these parts. I'm going to do one more so I can check the fitment. I'm kind of excited. I want to see how it fits together. And it doesn't, which means we'll have to sand both sides a little better. I could probably make it fit, but a little bit of sanding, and then that's not going to be an issue. So first thing I do, pull off all of the flashing, and I'll see you when we're done with that. Couldn't wait. Had to put things together, at least a little bit. Nothing's glued, so it's all just snapped on. Everything for the most part fits pretty well. The little sight adjuster doesn't fit. I need to widen the holes just a touch. And I could go in with sandpaper, or I'm just going to drill it out. It's always easier. Don't drill your hands. It might be just a little too small. Next size up. And since everything's going to be glued anyway, if the hole's just a little too big, not nearly that big of a deal. Well, that fits like a glove. Not too bad. Once it's glued in place, it'll be perfect. The astute among you have noticed it is backwards. That's intentional. It's for a left-handed client. It's an 11-year-old boy. Really likes Han Solo. Everything else fits as best as can be. I'm not snapping anything in permanently yet. I haven't sanded anything either. I hate sanding. It gets everywhere. These two pieces do not fit very well. I mean, I could shove it in and it would work. I'd rather sand it a little more. And again, I'm using, I don't know what am I using. 150. Sure, why not? I'm just going along the edge until everything fits. And honestly, Solo's blaster really is just a gun, scope, flash suppressor, and a heat sink barrel extender. It's a super easy build. Just a little bit of sanding here and there. Although we have hit the part where I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this. I could just mold the thing and be done with it. I know enough people who would be like, yeah, I want one here. Well, come on over and we'll mold you a blaster. I'm not gonna. I've thought about it already. If I were to mold the scope, I would actually go out and buy the proper scope so it was a full metal build, and then make a mold off of that. I don't like molding off of 3D printed parts. It's not recasting really, because the amount of work that I'm going to have to do just to get it moldable anyway, I don't view it as recasting. Some people might. I don't. At that point, it's just casting. It's real close. It's starting to slide. Like I said, I could probably force it. I just might. Oh, that's snug. Holes line up. Almost. There we go. Beautiful. Oh. It doesn't need it. I could just slide the piece on. As it fits, which is fine. But a little too snug for my taste. Especially if we're going to be gluing. And it gets a different finish than the rest of it, so it has to be finished and then glued in place. But the scope is done. Beautiful, huh? Yeah. Slap some paint on it and we're done, right? Like I said, luckily it's for an 11-year-old. It's not the most disconcerting of customers. He's not going to sit there and pick it apart. And we're not doing any particular Solo blaster in general. It's just a Solo blaster that he wanted. Since it's going on the real gun, or a real gun, the selector here is going to give us a problem. I'm probably going to have to modify the mounting rail just a little bit to make it fit. But we are done enough to be done enough. Now we move on to the fun stuff. This is glazing putty, right? I normally use Bondo brand glazing putty, but my local auto store switched to Evercoat. So we'll give it a shot. Why not, right? I always use gloves for this stuff. Some people don't. My phone is fingerprint activated. I'd like to be able to use it later. We're gonna leave the Bondo stuff alone for now. Try the new stuff. Here it's the same as the old stuff. Glazing putty is amazing. I absolutely, positively love glazing putty. I'm not sanding a thing, right? Instead, I'm going to use this gel and just fill everything in. I'm trying not to fill in this track groove. As thin a coat as you can manage, because we are going to end up sanding all of this off, putting on another coat and sanding it again. A lot of people do this with paint, like the sandable primer. Not a big fan of that. I come from an auto body background, so doing stuff like this makes way more sense than priming, sanding, priming, sanding. This stuff is specifically designed for this. It dries super quick. It sands beautifully because it's designed it to. Just keep in mind, wherever you want a mating surface, like this top rail here, I want as clean as possible, because I'm going to glue that. Alright. Done playing around with putting everything together. Time to take everything back apart. Maybe. There it goes. Like I said, everything gets covered. Luckily, this print has these holes, and I can glue through those. A little glue on the peg, pop it in, holds it nice in place. Plus, these retaining clips are going to get fully glued onto the top of the mounting bracket. Since this was originally a real-world item, you know, it's a scope for a gun. It's super, super well built. Make sure you push into all of the print lines, because once we take the top off, sand the top layer down so it's smooth again. We're not really trying to buff up the print any. We're trying to smooth everything. The best way to do that. Fill in the lines, smooth everything out. I love glazing putty. It's my go-to. Like I said, I don't sand if I don't have to. I'm not overtly fond of it. There are times where I'll just zone out and just sand for days. Today is not one of those days. Today is rarely one of those days. More than likely, this is going to be a static prop anyway. It's going to go on a shelf. The gun itself is just super heavy, which will add to the authenticity of the entire prop. I have a lightsaber. I love my lightsaber, right? I printed it out. It's fantastic. Super happy with it. And I've recently gotten in contact with a couple of companies that make that provide aluminum tube. So I order some tube and make myself a new lightsaber. And just the difference between having an actual metal prop and a plastic prop, it's night and day. Still loved my printed lightsaber. The metal one. It's neat. Maybe we'll do a video on how to make a lightsaber. Faith wants one. It'd be nice to give her a nice metal lightsaber. So that's it. We cover everything with this stuff. Luckily, it's, not difficult. It doesn't take time too long. We want to be careful about certain things like the knurling on a couple of these knobs. they're just going to get sprayed. There's not much I can do about knurling that doesn't absolutely just destroy it. My option would be to either make... Oh, this does not need any Bondo because it goes inside the other one. It goes inside the flash. Oh well, not a big deal. Jumping the gun this whole time. Literally. Still have flashing on this thing? Jeez Louise. I'm telling you, the minute you start filming yourself doing something, you will make every mistake you can. Yeah, it's part of the process. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. Those professionals you see who are like, hi, today I'm going to make this thing. Yeah, they've made mistakes. No matter how smooth a video you've watched goes, or even you actually see somebody do things, they have done so many mistakes to get to that point to where they look like they know what they're doing. It's just remarkable. So if you go and make some stupid mistakes, like forgetting to cut off some flashing, or even that's not a big deal. Just don't over complicate, don't overthink, don't sit there and go, well, I'll never be that. Yeah. All it takes is time and practice. And to make enough mistakes to know, oh, hey, that thing I did last time that was kind of stupid, don't do it this time. I still do. But, you know, I always think I'm not. Tore through my glove. Move on to the next finger. It's not the Bondo, or the glazing putty, that's breaking through the gloves, by the way. Doing this is basically just sanding them with my 3D print. A little nubbin right here. Probably tore my glove right open. This has got a lot of texture on it, so I'm not going to really coat that. I might do it with paint, but probably not. I'm probably just going to leave it as is. The Z screws on my printer are kind of lined up with each other, unfortunately, and they're just a hair off. So the whole carriage is kind of doing this as it goes up. That's what most of these lines are from. I could take the time to fix that, realign everything, offset it so they don't harmonize with each other, or I'll just use a little bit of glazing putty and be done with it. If I'm terribly worried about it, I could always have someone resin print it for me. But I'm not. So I filled in a couple of these holes. Super easy to punch out once everything is dry. And it's pretty close to being dry already. This process does not take a long time. Part of the reason I enjoy it so much. Because by the time I'm done with the last couple of pieces I got here, the first couple I started will be 100% dry. I'm going to give them a little more time, just because I want to make sure everything's nice and cured. I don't want to sand something and accidentally pop a flake off or something. Just when in doubt, give it a little extra time. Unless you're talking contact cement, nothing else matters for extra time. I've never had paint go, oh, I'm sorry, you waited too long, I am too cured. No, just contact cement. Everything else can always use a little extra time. Be aware of mating surfaces when using glazing putty. More of a reminder of myself than. So now, let all this dry, and we'll come back for some sanding. Everything's had time to cure. It's been an hour or two. I'm just using a 120 grit. I start out pretty aggressive, and then I always go, but then I'll do nice, and then I never do. So 120 is usually what I stick with. Now for the time lapse. We can hit this with a pretty aggressive sandpaper because we're going to do another coat. Alright, second coat. We do the exact same thing we just did. Since everything's been smoothed a bit, we're going to put another coat right over everything else. This should be, if we're lucky, the last coat we need to do. I'm not putting a thick coat on here. It is as thin as I can make it. The thinner your coat, the less you're going to have to worry about sanding. So we just do this on all the pieces, just like we did the first time. We're going to cover everything in a light layer of glazing putty. So since we're talking about glazing putty, it's inexpensive. Almost every hardware or automotive store has it. It'll be in the Bondo and body filler section. It's relatively inexpensive. Lasts a while. Not like a super long time, but a decent amount of time. It sticks to just about everything. So you have to keep that in mind though. It does stick to just about everything. It sands pretty easy. Smooths fantastically because it's designed for smoothing cars. I'm really excited about this build. A friend of mine is getting it for his son. It's not really a surprise, so I'm not worried about keeping things quiet about it. But there's at least 3 different finishing techniques on the scope alone, which is where I'm focusing. At least where this video is going to focus. I'm not worried about just about anything else at this point. I just want to get the scope 100% and maybe the muzzle, because the muzzle's got a nice, the flash suppressor's got a nice silver we can do to it. And I'm really looking forward to showing off a couple of the nifty finishing techniques you can do on 3D printed props to make them look way more metal. I'm using toothpaste. We're going to do graphite paint techniques. Yeah, kind of excited about it. If you've seen my weapon wall, you'll know I like finishing projects. I absolutely love paint techniques, and I think with a little bit of practice, all you guys can get to exactly where I am. Like if I can do it, just about anybody can, right? None of this stuff is difficult, and everybody makes it out, the professionals, make it seem like it's this difficult process that, oh, you couldn't get to it. But I think you can. A little bit of practice and we can all do this stuff. Then we'll all have super cool products, being cool looking props. Look like we stepped out of the movies. There we go. It's 2 coats. Gonna give it another hour or so. Let it do its thing. All of these parts are just gonna get painted. Well, you're gonna have flashing cut off and then get painted. This is gonna be completely redone. I'm not happy with it. It doesn't fit, so I knew I was gonna have to redo it anyway. I'm also gonna have to print 2 more of these because apparently there's 4 of them. I get for not paying attention, huh? Change your blades often. A sharp knife is way less dangerous than a dull one. Same for people. Alright, we're going to let it dry. Come back in a little bit, sand everything again. Maybe get to priming. It'd be pretty exciting. I like priming. So it's been a bit. Let's sand everything down and see where we're at. I think I may end up doing 1 more coat. If my printer were tuned up just a little better, I probably wouldn't have to, but you know. I am lazy. And that takes time that I'm not willing to devote. Basically every dark area needs more Bondo. So there's not a lot, but there's enough. So I have what appears to be a layer shift. There's a small one, but it's still there. So that's going to need to be filled in. And I know he's not going for any form of Legion approval or anything like that, but I still want it to look like a good thing. It's probably just going to end up on a wall somewhere and never be touched. Some of these are ready for primer. I'm going to use a gray sandable primer. And I'm using just primer. I'm not using ×2. I'm not using primer and paint. I want my primer to just be primer. Period. So I'm using a gray primer because most of this stuff is a silver. So if anything does get scratched down to primer, I want it to look like primer. Same reason I use gray PLA is because if I get a nick or a scratch in here, I want it to look as if, you know, we're seeing metal. And using weird colored PLA or ABS or whatever you want to use, just makes it look odd if you get scratches and nicks in it. And it's going to happen because it's a prop and props are living things, and that's kind of how things work. So, I'm going to sand this down a little bit. I'm going to insert this, and then we're going to start priming things. I may take this over to a power sander. I'll be right back. We're going to go over all of these with a light, quick gray. I go over these with a gray. And this with a light gray. So, nice, even coat, light, even coat. And we'll see when that's done. Oh, this is the primer I'm using. Standard Rust-Oleum primer. Just primer. Coat 1 is done. Let it dry. Light buff, coat 2. I've moved on to 220. Do light sanding. Then another coat of primer. The paint has not had full time to dry, which I'm using in my advantage. So I'm more brazing than I am sanding. Nice and light. We're going to get another coat in anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The second coat should fill everything in and make it perfect. Or at least as perfect as we're going to do. So my goal for this is to not make it perfect. There's no way I will be able to take a 3D print and make it 100% perfect. You have to have a realistic goal when you do this stuff. I'm going for really good. I'm not going for perfect. If you sit there and chase a dragon the whole time, you'll never catch it. But I can make it really good. Which is where we're going. Alright, so now we're going to do another light coat of spray paint and then see where we're at from there. So there we are so far. Nice, smooth, very happy with how everything looks. We're going to let this dry overnight. We will pick it back up in the morning. So, I was going to pick it up in the morning, but I think we're going to end it here. Everything is smooth. It looks very good. I'm very happy with it. I think the next video is going to be finishing techniques, painting, making it look like metal, you know, things like that. Just the last bits to make it look like a finished prop. As it stands right now, I'm happy with it. It's fantastic. All the sanding is nice and smooth. It doesn't look like a 3D print, which is the big thing. So, yeah, at this point, go find that hunk of junk somewhere. We'll see you in the next one.